We're going to get started. Good morning and good afternoon to some of you, depending on your time zones, and welcome. My name is Daniel Carrasco. I'm one of the CTOs here at Technologent for the West Coast. Thank you for taking the time and joining us today. We're excited to spend time with you talking about a challenge every enterprise is actively facing and talking about, and that is the AI readiness side of being AI ready in a way that is secure, scalable, and operationally sound, most importantly. Today's conversation is a joint session between Technologent and Cisco, focus on what it takes to enable AI across the enterprise, most importantly, from infrastructure and networking and observability, security, and the governance associated with it. My role personally is to set the stage today, briefly introduce Technologent, frame why AI matters, and outline the needs to be placed before AI can truly be scaled. I'll hand it over from there to Cisco to go deeper into the architecture platform perspectives. If you have any questions during the session, there is a session chat in the bottom. Please put your questions there. I will address them along here with Paul at the end of the session. And if we can't get to you, we'll certainly follow up with you. Let's go to the next slide here, Paul. So I'm going to give you a quick background on who we are, who's Technologent, right? For those of you who are not familiar with us, we are a global system integrator with over 23 years of experience helping enterprises align business strategy and business execution. So we sit in that middle layer of understanding your verticals, your operations, and then we align the technology associated with that to help you with those journeys. We support enterprise customers across kind of four different disciplines, and that would be data, cloud, security, and intelligence, and the alignment across those four, helping really around the modernization, the complex enterprise environments that we all have to face today. What really makes us different is the verticalized operating model we have, helping organizations translate, as an example, AI and advanced technologies into industry-relevant use cases that are aligned for their operations and real-time business outcomes. What I mean by that is, in order for Technologent to work closely with Cisco and give you an outcome, we have to understand your vertical operations, whether you are a healthcare organization, a financial organization, manufacturing, whatever that might be, and help you connect that business side to the technology. So we have invested in a lot of talent that came from a lot of verticals, like the ones that you work for here on this call, to help us with that alignment. As it relates to AI, we're seeing a clear shift across the enterprise. AI is no longer isolated, to innovation teams or pilots, right? We're truly moving AI to the enterprise now. Obviously, with revenue generating outcomes is what most C-level folks are looking for. It has become now more embedded into what I would call the core business operations with clear expectations around impact and measurable outcomes. So that's where we're here to talk to you about and help you with. That shift fundamentally changes the demand placed on data network security and the entire operation ecosystem, right? You have to have the foundation ready for the AI readiness. And I'm going to talk about that in the next slide here, Paul. So what is AI readiness, right? It's not about talking about the models, right? It's essentially having the foundation ready. And what I mean by that is AI readiness is about preparing the enterprise to operate intelligently at scale, right? In practical terms, that means organizations must modernize four core areas of the business. Number one, in today's world, is data, enabling real-time access across hybrid multi-cloud environments, but most importantly, preparing the data. I'm talking about classification, the tagging aspects of it, ensuring that the cleansing side of that data is ready for use cases. And we have identified, obviously, customer experience in some cases, use cases through that exercise, right? And you also hear the term, the data fuels AI, right? And AI obviously fuels data and so on and so forth. But that is the foundation of everything we do today, making sure our data is where it needs to be. And then the associated networking, delivering secure and resilient, low latency connectivity across AI workloads, regardless of whether you're doing that at the edge, at the data center, right? Or perhaps in a hybrid cloud environment, we have to make sure we have real-time access to that data through the network itself. And then there's an operational component here as well, right? The observability and the automation to manage the growing complexities, right? Making sure you have the insight to your enterprise to make informed decisions through that foundation. This is where we combine solutions like Cisco with Technologent, right, for those critical sort of designs. And with that said, I'm going to pass it on here to Paul, right, so that he could walk us through a deeper dive into how Cisco has responded to the enterprise with their solution, which I would call a unified end-to-end, solution here for AI. So Paul, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. So again, hey, I'm Paul Davis. I'm with Cisco. Been in this industry for many years and been at Cisco probably combined over probably 10, 11 years if you look at, full tenure. But excited to be here today to talk about where Cisco is within our AI strategy. And so hopefully over the next 30 to 45 minutes, we can give you an overview of things that we're seeing in the industry and also just give you an idea of where Cisco is really making that investment in terms of building products and solutions for our customers. Most people would start with this at the end or put this at the end in terms of this, but I did want to call out to make sure we have enough time. But that QR code is not a hack or anything. We have an AI summit coming up, and there's pretty much the big players across AI are all going to be this. It's remote. Don't need a special registration. If you click the link, it'll take you to a place where you just add it to your calendar. So if you happen to have some free time, I encourage you to do that. But like, if you look at the faces on there, right, from NVIDIA to OpenAI, all the big players are going to be in this with Cisco, and we're hosting it for them. So please attend if you can. It'd be great. All right. So I don't think I need to say that AI is top of mind for pretty much every conversation, whether it's in the business, whether it's in the financial market, whether it's in the boardroom. It is top of mind for everyone. And a lot of these conversations have gone around, like, how do I use things like generative AI with the chat bots? And now we're starting to have deeper conversations with agentic AI of how can I use AI to automate some of my existing workflows? And then even from a robotic standpoint, whether we're embedding AI into a robot on a machine, manufacturing line, or even self-driving cars, AI is continuing to evolve, and it's evolving extremely fast. If we think about, I think it was 2022 when ChatGPT came out, and now, I mean, that's only a few years ago. The amount of new companies, new outcomes, how AI is getting embedded is definitely going pretty fast. And so at Cisco, I will say we are seeing this as an opportunity for our customers to look at their networks and realize that AI is going to drive a significant impact on that. And if you think about inference, so that's, power compute networking demands on the network. Chatbots, a chatbot today is very spiky. And then, a ChatGPT, I think I saw a study said that it uses 10 times more power and compute than a Google search did. So definitely just from that perspective, it's demand on the network's going to increase. But as we move into this agentic world where, we're going to have anywhere from 10 to 100 agents each that are helping us do our jobs in the background that are going to be running somewhat 24/7. And even from a duration of how quickly these different chatbots, like, a chatbot today, like it goes out, you write a prompt and it goes back and seconds or minutes it comes back. But these agents may be running 24/7 for months, years on end. And so we just need to be prepared for that because we've got to realize, the potential bottlenecks within the network that AI may drive on the network. The other one, if we think about just security and governance, Danny mentioned a little bit about where they can help around some of the governance things, but we're just saying, hey, is that model secure? Do I trust the model? Is it sending information back that maybe is it appropriate? Is it correct? There's a lot of things we have to consider in terms of if we're doing different language models, and then the security or cybersecurity aspect of it only increases. And we have to think about how we are protecting our own data and ensuring that, an employee is not putting proprietary data out into, say, a model that is at risk. And so it takes a lot to think about that. And I talked about agents. And so, today there's 8 billion people in the world. Um, the thought is that when we get to full agentic, there'll be 80 billion agents that are also hitting that same network and also using the same resources. And then we'll be working with those agents during the day. And so um, it does bring a lot of load to the network. The other thing is around these agents. And so as many of us also have identity with, okay, I'm in, a certain department within my organization here at Cisco, I should have access to certain resources, but then I also should not have access to certain things. And then, if we think about like malware, right? If all of a sudden I'm breached, all of a sudden my computer behavior starts to change. We got to think about like how do we manage and monitor, there's 80 billion agents and ensure that they are accessing the appropriate resources and are behaving as they should be in case they get, breached and hacked. So again, this whole agentic thing is putting a whole nother level of security into our discussions around AI. Data is gold, and we say this a lot, but a lot of times I think for our customers out there, data is a competitive advantage, especially when it comes to their like customer data, um, and it becomes the fuel for AI. And so most of us today don't have our data all sitting in one location, and it's scattered in a lot of different places, and it's how do we capture that data and use it to drive more value out of AI? And, if you think about data, there's kind of two forms, right? One of them is the human generated data. So if I think about like how I use AI today with human generated data, I may take a 50-page document and use that document and then have AI summarize it. Or I may create a bunch of emails over time and I want to go back and see how, like, was there any common theme with the follow-ups, maybe even from like a WebEx call in terms of like that transcript and taking that data. But then also there's the the machine generated data side of that. And that's where a lot of the opportunity is coming. And that could be anything from like a client on a Cisco network that's providing, how their performance is going on. And so how do I take that data and use it to improve network operations for that end user? But then also think about the machines on like a manufacturing line or some of these other, call them third-party devices that's creating data. How do I go capture that data and then use it for with AI to drive efficiencies or improve productivities or just, things like a manufacturer could be preventive maintenance of machine on the line. And again, this is why we think Cisco is important in this AI discussion is because like we are the infrastructure company. And then as we've built out our products, we've definitely gone and looked at, I mean, even in the last 5 years, really looked at how can AI help our own offerings, help our customers be successful. And so with all that, we'll just kind of make sure we recapture the key themes that we're seeing is one is that the AI is definitely network bound. It's not only in the cloud, but it's on the campus, it's in the data center, it's at the edge. It's going to affect a lot of different areas of the network, and we've got to be able to plan for that. The other one is just around, we are seeing a trend of AI applications moving back into kind of that private data center, or even I guess at the edge as well within an environment. And that's really coming around. Like one, it could be latency with that workload application that I need to have that application closer to me instead of say going back to the cloud. The other one could be around security. So maybe there again goes back to the data conversation. Is that data something that I want to keep locally and protect it instead of sending it up to a large language model? And then obviously economics, this concept of tokenomics around like, okay, how much does it cost to run this in certain areas? Is it more economical to run it in a private data center versus a public cloud or through like an AI as a service? And so those financial analyses are starting to come up more and more in terms of like, okay, where does it make it more efficient to run this economically? We talked about trust and ensuring that the models we are using are trustworthy and secure, and then making sure that the data that we do send into these AI applications is secure as well. And, you can't, I guess from a cybersecurity perspective, being in this industry, having controls and having governance and being able to have visibility across your entire network from endpoint to campus to data center from a security perspective is going to be even more critical as we look to plan this out. And so Cisco is looking at this in terms of like there's three pillars, by the way, all wrapped around with cybersecurity in each of these that we are looking at helping our customers be successful. And one of them is the AI ready data centers, which can be anywhere from the public cloud to the private cloud to the neo cloud providers or even on the edge. The other one is around future-proof workplaces. And so we can think about like the campus environment. So, many of us are going back into the offices these days. We're also working in a hybrid environment where we're still working remote. And so, like my experience and how I can leverage AI in my own workday, as well as what data can I pull from that workplace environment to use AI to maybe drive a better experience inside of a real estate environment. And the third one's around digital resilience. And this is really around just like, is the network running at the best it possibly can? Is my end users getting the best experience? Am I secure? Am I seeing things maybe that are not traditionally like on the IT network? Maybe it's OT, maybe it's a machine on a manufacturing line or a point of sale system in a retail environment, right? Am I ensuring that can I use AI to help drive a better experience for that? And so we're going to break down each of these into a little bit more detail and give you an idea of where Cisco is building out the products. And so, we talk a lot about our, these three pillars, but they're really fed by the different solutions that Cisco has, whether it's across the data center and campus with our infrastructure, whether it's in our security portfolio, across the observability, things like Splunk, or even our collab and contact center portfolio, right? All these are feeding into these pillars. And so these pillars are the blueprint that can help our customers understand how to be ready for AI, ensure that they're not realizing any bottlenecks. Our strategy has been really like Cisco, like we're going to almost just read this, but, embedding AI in, and then also giving the infrastructure the ability to build on AI on the infrastructure to really drive amazing outcomes, but then also being responsible with it. And so we talked about trust. And if you think about Cisco, right, we've built trust with our customers, and we definitely want to continue this in the AI world. And so when I say stuff like built in our products, I really almost break that into like really two areas. One of them is our AI native solution. So these are just things that Cisco uses AI right out of the box. So you deploy a solution, AI is running in the background. I always like to give the example of, with WebEx when we introduced noise background removal, things like network assurance on the network, kind of just capturing what's going on in the network, running, understanding suggestions, things around that, running modeling. But then we also have our AI solutions that, you can go and deploy within your network. And that can run from like an infrastructure design, such as Secure AI Factory with NVIDIA or AI Pod, or even some of the campus switching, down to cybersecurity with AI defense or hybrid mesh firewall in that area. And I can't forget about Splunk, because Splunk's been kind of leading the data charge, and we continue to enhance that, and a lot of exciting products that we've announced and that are coming in that area around AI and how we're leveraging AI to help our customers. And then even our contact center capabilities, like the agentic contact center when it comes to like many of us, I don't like calling contact center and being told I've got to wait 45 minutes to get a response. But leveraging some of the technologies where, you can have that same interaction and then also a consistent experience. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. But, and it's great to talk about the technology, but at the end of the day, many of us are, as business owners, are really trying to say, okay, how can I actually drive an ROI and drive an outcome using AI? And so we're seeing it across every industry. Whether you're in manufacturing, trying to, do digital twinning with, virtual factory, or just automating some of the workforce automation, maybe even robotics, whatever it may be, or healthcare with, patient records and, as a lot of you go to the doctor, and I think a lot of the doctors these days are starting to use AI because it gives them access to information and research that they may not have had prior, would have to go spend time trying to do that, to energy with smart grid or financial services and stuff. So ultimately, like our customers are wanting to drive some type of ROI or value out of AI across their industries. And so we talked about that pillar, those three pillars, right? Those are built up from Cisco's portfolio and solutions of products. Um, but then, ultimately these drive these outcomes. And so partners like Technologent are wonderful because they can go in and understand the business, understand what you're attempting to do, and help identify what that ROI is, and then connect them back into, where Cisco can help from this. I will say this, there's really two ways as we're seeing customers approach AI. One of them, again, they start with the outcome in mind. And so they say, I wanted to do X. It needs to have this type of ROI. How do I do it? And so we work with like technologists side by side and it's trying to work backwards into what does that architecture need to look like to support that end to end. But then we also have customers who are starting from the bottom and saying, all right, I've got to modernize my data center over the next year or so. How can I go ahead and be AI ready? And so let's go ahead and build the infrastructure to where it's scalable so that when the business starts to put more demand on, hey, we want to run this AI application, right? You're already ready, you're ready to go, and it's secure across that. So um, that would be kind of a high level overview. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to go pretty quickly through some of the different pillars and explain where some of these technologies are coming about. So if you hear things like AI Pod or Secure AI Factory or hybrid mesh firewall, like what is that? Because again, we do like to talk a lot about products sometimes, but ultimately this is the foundation so that you can be as a client AI ready and can then help address and achieve those business outcomes that you're looking at driving. Um, Real quick, again, we continue to see across not only within the hyperscalers, but in the enterprise space, spend within AI and the build out as we continue to move towards AI. And it's not like one size fits all. Like we still see a lot of applications with AI go to the cloud, but then we've got a lot of things coming on-prem or even at the edge. So we're having a lot of discussions around that. We talked a little bit about some of the economics and security things around that, what makes sense. And then you've got neo cloud providers. So think of neo cloud as like an inference as a service, or I want to buy like GPUs as a service. So it kind of sits in the middle. But there's a lot of interest on that, and a lot of these neo cloud providers are actually building this based on Cisco design and using Cisco products in their data center. We talked about like the decision that a lot of our customers are making, like, do I put it on-prem? Do I buy as a service? Do I put it in the cloud? There's a lot of things that have to go into that decision. So it's not one size fits all, but Cisco is there across all this, and we can give you the blueprint and help you along the way, along with Technologent. And so, do I have control of that data? So if data is my goal, am I still having control around where that is? Do I have security built in? Am I achieving those use cases? Do I have the scalability to be able to support these use cases? Um, and then the economics, tokenomics is something that's always considered. And so, Cisco does a lot in the data center with AI, right? We work with the hyperscalers. We've got the neo cloud providers. Again, that is your inference or by basically AI as a service or GPU as a service. We work with the service providers as well. And then obviously we are starting to see more and more of these AI data centers moving to the enterprise space. And so while the hyperscalers have really built up their infrastructure to do it, we're starting to see the use cases again move to the enterprise. And so what does that mean? So, our goal within our AI ready data center pillar is to give you the full stack. And so that's providing really the components that are scalable to be able to build out the data center infrastructure to support this. But then we're not forgetting in things like observability and being able to run this. And so it's nice to have the infrastructure, but if you can't intelligently manage it and keep it operational, that runs into challenges. And so that's where we're building in a lot of our full stack, other, Cisco full architecture into these discussions. And then, from a security, it's, everything across every workload, across every device, like how do we make sure that everything is secure? And so, we talk about where we're at within the data center. And again, I'm going to touch on the secure AI factory with NVIDIA because we're seeing a lot of discussions around that because that is the blueprint on if you want to go build your own AI factory, right? This allows you to address the security components, the compute components, all that observability. And then we also have something very similar in terms of AI pod, where it's basically like a kit, which it builds all that together. We talked about neo clouds. I want to touch on Unified Edge because that's a very unique offering that has started to gain some traction. And then, ultimately, like hybrid cloud, not everybody has every workload everywhere, and it's something we're working on. So again, from a data center perspective, like the whole stack within the AI journey is to address not only the compute and power side of the house, but also security and observability. And um, so NVIDIA and Cisco got together, and when we think about factory, we think about like, okay, stuff goes into a factory and then it comes out as a product. And so ultimately, this is the model that we're doing. One unique thing about Cisco is that because of the depth and breadth of our portfolio, we're able to include the security side of this when it comes to the secure AI factory. And no one else is doing that today. And so, the fact that we can leverage some of the other capabilities of Cisco and build this into, if you're familiar with the Cisco validated design, think of this as a Cisco validated design from an AI factory perspective. And so, we partner with NVIDIA. They're a great partner of ours, and we continue to build that out. But, their software, GPUs, all that components, um, our operating networking capabilities, as well as, partner storage. So there's a couple different partner storage options in this mix. And then, as we go into some of the security portfolio in a few slides, it'll be something that we can talk about, but that's part of that validated design of like AI defense and what that does, or, hybrid mesh firewall or hypershield and all that stuff, right? That is built into the design. And then being able to see what's going on. So you can't manage what you can't see. And so being able to use things like Splunk observability, and so a lot of our observability products and solutions can help you build a scalable factory from an AI set perspective. So again, AI pod, very similar. It's a blueprint. It addresses like, I'm going to run AI applications. What do I need to do? Where do I start? And so I would start with the secure AI factory with NVIDIA conversation, with Technologent and Cisco, talk about what that means, and then how do you design that so that it's scalable to whatever your demands is. It's very flexible in terms of, it's not like one size fits all. We can have that deeper discussion with them. Unified Edge. So back at Cisco Partner Summit in November, we announced Cisco Unified Edge, and think about all those, design architecture, reference that we want to build out an AI solution. Well, we're also finding that there are certain AI application that it makes sense. Maybe it's a latency component. Maybe it's just, who's using it, and do I need to send it back to a data center? Maybe it makes sense to run it at the edge, right? On a campus edge, or maybe locally, like at a hospital, inside the hospital in their, data center room, et cetera. And so, we announced our Unified Edge, which has that same building blocks components of, compute, storage, networking, software, to run these AI applications locally. And, so there is flexibility. And so again, working with Technologent and Cisco, we can help you design what's right based on looking at what is that outcome that you're looking at driving, or maybe what is that AI workload that you're looking at doing. Security, I can't say enough. Like, if you think about just so AI, so the bad actors are using AI to try to get into the network. So in essence, right, we've got to figure out like, how do we fight AI with AI? And so you got to embed AI within security. So you got to make sure that whatever security portfolio you're just sending out and building out is like AI ready. The other thing is that like for many of us, like we probably have used ChatGPT or Gemini or something personally. How do you know, similar to the shadow IT, now with shadow AI, like how do you know who's using what? How do you control like those AI applications so that, if I'm an employee and I don't download a bunch of confidential information and then put it on a public LLM, which poses risk, like how do you know who's using what? And so, our AI defense offering does that, right? It helps discover what AI applications are being used. It also detects against different vulnerabilities and gives you a rating score in terms of like where are my risk at when it comes to AI. So if I can't see what AI applications are being used in my environment and find out that I'm sitting here using my personal chat GPT for all my business work, as a corporation we need to make sure that that's not happening, and we need to fix it because it puts the company and the data at risk. And then also just the protection side of it, so real-time threats, like what's going on. And so one, again, we want to look at is like what AI is running in the environment, where am I risk at? And then when I actually run things, what is the vulnerability and risk that I take? And so um, again, a lot of opportunity for customers to get a view of where AI is being used and how to protect their enterprise from that aspect. Hybrid mesh firewall. So we're at an age where it's not about just putting in a firewall and then running everything through it and seeing what traffic's on, right? We're way past that. And in an AI world, being able to have the breadth of um, visibility across everything from, physical virtual cloud type firewalls to, the smart switches to the workload agents. And so it, think of Cisco's hybrid mesh firewall as this, platform that literally can give you a unified management and then also a broad threat protection and detection capabilities that reach across that. And then you layer in like Hypershield, which is, a component of this, but it really gets down to that application level and helps protect against things. And so smart switches is a great example where we're embedding security into that. And so, at the kernel level, you can actually see the threats that are going on. So let's go back to this workplace of the future real quick. And so we think about who's going to be working in that. So we could have us, as employees using agents. We could have robots roaming around, depending on what industry you're in. Cybersecurity, lots of threats, but how are we communicating? How are we working in offices, even in a hybrid environment? So the workplace is different. And so if you think about like how Cisco is building out this future-proof workplace, right? One of them is just, it's providing a secure campus and branch networking, whether it's like some of the latest Wi-Fi, whether it's the switching that goes into it. It's SD-WAN and how you map applications, and so you drive better performance. Collaboration is a big thing, and so whether it's a human working in the environment in a contact center, or maybe it's an agentic agent to help front load a lot of those call volumes that you're getting, right? AI's affecting it, and then agentic ops, and so how can I better run my operation of my network, and how can I improve that end user experience? And so again, just making sure the campus is ready. So again, Cisco has a lot of portfolio, whether it's from our smart switches to the routers to the Wi-Fi, even some of the OT devices out there. We have a broad portfolio. But one thing we've done is that we think about all the large language models out there, right? Cisco has its own with its deep network model, which is so think about all the TAC experience, all the best practices, all the things we've learned, being able to take that data and use it in terms of running your network more effectively. And so at Cisco Live, we announced AI Canvas. And so if you're not familiar with it, there's probably a few videos on YouTube online that talk about it. But think about this as just like how you run and operate your network, and having the ability to, like you say, drag and drop different groups. So I've got an issue, maybe I want to pull in a different department inside of like the SOC folks because it may be security. All right, well, great, we'll just pull them in, and then they can see the interaction as a whole. So the ultimate goal is to drive better and more efficient network operations. We all know assistants are great, and so there's a lot of areas where Cisco has deployed our AI assistants, whether it's within like a WebEx call, but maybe it's like, hey, I've got this network issue on my network. What should I do? So using AI assistants to better operate your network, even from, and we'll talk a little bit on the contact center stuff, but like if I am a human answering a phone and I want to have an AI assistant listen to my call and make recommendations based on those conversations, instead of the person having to pause and then go research, like there's capabilities of using AI assistants, and that is starting to stretch across a lot of the portfolio. Um, Again, that end user experience. So we think about all the different like collaboration capabilities. And so one of the cool things is that we actually started putting NVIDIA chipsets in our collaboration devices many years ago. And so that investment is starting to pay off pretty well. And the fact that it's a lot of these AI driven experiences, right? We talked about noise removal. We talked about summarizing notes within a meeting and then providing a AI summary of all the things that were discussed. But then there's also devices that are sending data. So if you go into our one pen office in New York, there's all type of sensors, right? We've got Wi-Fi, obviously you've got, cameras, temperature controls, all that stuff. All that data is then collected. So you can transform your own campus environment and really use that data to really drive a better, more efficient experience. And maybe that's on sustainability of being able to use this data to, automatically lower blinds or, you know, turn the temperature up or down depending on, how many people are in the room. Also being able to identify like, okay, there's 20 conference rooms that we have, 7 are free. Which ones should I go to? And so being able to take data and then using that through AI to be able to drive a better real estate experience and drive sustainability as well to better utilize spaces. So we talked about CX. So I was taking a class and it was talking about like driving a consistent experience and really driving that net promoter score up for your end customer. How do you do that? And so none of us like long wait times. And then I can't say I get a consistent experience when I call a contact center and get 5 different people over those 5 different calls and I get a different experience. And so how do you drive that? And one of the ways is with agentic agents. And so building out these call flows to where it literally sounds like a human, um, has capabilities to talk different languages and run through scripts and take the end user's feedback and use that and help automate it to get to a better outcome faster. And then, we talked about AI assistants. I use this example where I called a bank one time and I was asking about a promo I'd signed up when I opened some account. And the other person then just literally read what the script was. So I got a consistent experience, but it took them a minute to go find it. But what if you had an AI assistant agent listening in the background that could quickly just go ahead and say, hey, I heard this. Here's what you probably should say related to that promotion. So digital resilience, this is probably a long discussion. So I'm going to touch on this very high level, but a lot of this comes around the value from the acquisition of Splunk. And so just think of Splunk being able to capture data and then presenting it back in different forms, and that could be across network data, it could be across different types of devices, it could be in the cyber security perspective. And so the key thing is just being able to detect, react, and anticipate with that data. So again, data is the fuel for AI, and so Splunk is at the center of this, to be able to pull that in. One thing that we have seen in the past has been like if you talk about this machine on the line, like it creates some type of data. Maybe it's honestly like noise vibrations from it moving or something. Like being able to capture some of that and then make sense of it to get ahead of the game. The other one is like how do you like the skill set, the cost. Yeah, it's great to have all the stuff and capture the data. It's like how can I draw an ROI? And that's where we, Technologent can help align to that. But so Cisco at the Net conference a couple months ago announced the Cisco Data Fabric, which is basically how do I capture all this data and try to centralize it to really leverage it for AI, that can then ultimately help you operate more effectively, really unlock more potential within AI, and then just, unify that, whole human and agent experience. And so, um, I am about done. I think just when I think about Cisco and AI, I'll leave you with this. And I'll jump back to that AI conference coming up. But, Cisco sits in the middle, right, when it comes to AI infrastructure and connecting your business outcomes to your, IT, environment. And, we're here with Technologent to help, and the full portfolio is available, whether it's things like Secure AI Factory or really transforming your campus and workplace environment, to really securing and managing the environment. Cisco's here, and so with that, I'm going to jump back to the first slide of, if you want to capture this QR code again. But again, I really appreciate everybody's time. I'm going to check to see if there's any questions in the chat here. But hopefully this gave you an overview. If there's things you want to dive in deeper, just reach out to Technologent and your account teams, and they can engage with Cisco and get all the right resources available to dive deeper into any of these topics as you prepare for the AI revolution.
Hey, Paul, Danny here. So one of the questions that was in the chat session was the AI discovery platform that you mentioned. I believe that's part of the AI defense
Yeah, it
solution,
is.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty broad conversation in terms of that offering because it does a lot, but it's very specific on, how do we have some type of governance and cyber security within AI. So it's a great starting topic point, and then kind of building out from there.
Okay. They're asking if you could go back to that slide also on the chat session.
Yes. Uh,
There was another question also on here, Paul, around the unification of all the instrumentation. Does the AI defense solution kind of connect the ecosystem of the likes of now Splunk, Thousand Eyes, right? Anything that does a log and sort of a trace type of data ingestion, does that connect at all? Or are those still disparate technologies talking?
Good question. I don't want to give an answer because I don't know how specific we have integrated this. However, I will say we have constantly focused on how do we integrate and leverage different technologies. And so I'll say Canvas is one where we have integrated Splunk. And so those data feeds from Splunk into that AI Canvas motion. So, but from a security perspective, it'd be good to dive into that. Maybe, I just don't know off the top of my head. I
Okay.
apologize for that.
Yes, we'll follow up on that. I think I'm thinking about it from more of a data pipeline integration, right? Into
Yeah.
a single source of truth in a way.
It,
So,
and we did put out, that Cisco Data Fabric or Splunk Data Fabric, where we're trying to pull data together into one place and stuff. So I think that's probably where we can start. But let's take that as a follow-up. Let's definitely follow up on that one.
that'd be perfect. Is there any more questions for anybody in the audience? If you could place those on the chat, that would be great. Thank you. All right. I don't see any more questions, Paul. I think we could wrap this up, but I wanted to thank you on behalf of Cisco and Technologent for the opportunity. And please reach out to us. I mean, we could continue the conversation. There is a lot of topics, obviously, that could come from something like this. So reach out to us. Alma here will send our contact information as a follow-up to everybody on here. So thank you again. Have a great day.